Should be good to go. So, what is up, everybody? Welcome to our bi-weekly community call. Exciting week this week. We had a really small announcement yesterday that nobody paid attention to, which is good. So, before we dive into that announcement, we could do the regular housekeeping stuff as always. Mostly business as usual. We had a little mishap this week that we'll also talk about just briefly to keep everybody in the loop on what happened there. But as usual, 17th round of RL Butterfly distribution went out. I think it was a juicier one this epoch, which is always good. I don't know if we have anything to add to that. I don't think we do. So sounds good.
There's the grace period thing.
I don't know if Funky, you want to touch on that or
Okay, I got it. Sure.
whatever.
No, just a lot of people thought that like you have to lock immediately after you get your butterfly to like make it to the next epoch, but there's always a week grace period, so it's not like it's not instant. So if you lock, I think even now you will be eligible for the next one.
Yeah, so everybody relax. I saw some angry people in the general chat, but also like for those of you who have a hard time even making that 1 week grace period, remember that PX Butterfly is on the way and that should handle it for you in the future. So don't worry about it. You guys have a week grace period. No need to get frustrated. We're working on solutions that make it as easy as possible across the board. So it's all good. Any other questions about RL Butterfly stuff or the epochs? Doesn't look like it. So moving on, we had a good couple of weeks for Hidden Hand recently. I'm trying to pull up the numbers right now. It looks like this past sort of distribution, we were at around like 274,000 in Hidden Hand bribes, and the week before that, 923,000 Hidden Hand bribes. So we're staying near that $1 million in bribes mark. Hopefully we can pass it again relatively soon and set a new all-time high. I think we're working on onboarding new partners, expanding markets, so on and so forth, which is really exciting. And on the Hidden Hand front, really briefly, I think we should talk about the Aura situation that a lot of people were paying attention to. So I don't know who wants to take this. I mean, I can kind of give the TLDR of what happened, and then we can maybe talk about like the snapshot vote and the result and all of that stuff. So basically what happened was actually, Never, can you set the stage on how the infrastructure works before I fumble all over this?
Yeah, sure. So there's like different facets to the project where people deposit bribes on chain, people vote, and then that gets executed. And for the Aura market, we were also running like a bribe optimizer such delegate where people delegate to us, and we could we vote on their behalf for like the highest reward possible. But yeah, so we had a technical issue with that part of the system, which kind of didn't let the vote go through. And the problem with that being is that this is kind of the infrastructure like allows DAOs to like expect a certain kind of APY on their pools, since we're kind of like a majority of the votes, around like I think as of this epoch like 5 million of the votes are delegated to Hidden Hand. So it's kind of like pretty important structurally that it works. And I don't know, it's been a year. I mean, I don't know, been like since last summer since we ran it, and we had a technical failure this time. We've taken some already, quickly put up patches and fixes so that this never happens again.
Yeah, so this was a super like unusual, unexpected error on the back end with our bot hosts, and so I think like going forward, we're gonna make sure it doesn't happen again, because having to like do these sort of retroactive like proposals to fix a vote that should have gone through but didn't is obviously a weird situation to be in. As you all saw, we had to kind of rally the troops a little bit, get a proposal up, and then get that proposal passed in a super short time frame. Because of that, some people were on board, some weren't. I think most of the people who weren't had to do with like receiving less yield than they otherwise would have received. So I don't know. It's one of those things. Kind of, it is what it is. We're super stoked that the Aura community or Aura DAO are kind of like willing to work with us on this and do right by all of the users who trust Hidden Hand as a product. So shout out to them and shout out to the Aura community. I think there's a couple of like next steps that will go in place, but we'll have to share those at a future date. I think we're working on those with the Aura team at the moment. So that's the TLDR on that. I don't know if anybody has questions or if there's anything I missed that we feel like we should touch on, but if not, we can keep moving. Should be good. Cool. So the other thing that never highlighted in the town hall text chat is about the sort of bunny market showing promise, which is pretty cool. I think this week they distributed something like 11 ETH in bribes through Hidden Hand, and that's through their, I think it's Tap 10 or something 10, whatever their improvement proposals are called. But basically, they have a very similar setup to Balancer and BIP19, where their revenue is rerouted through Hidden Hand, which is sick. These are the type of partnerships that we're really excited about and that we're trying to focus on for the future of Hidden Hand, because we think they're sort of very synergistic and it's a good product market fit for Hidden Hand. So pay attention to their market. Pretty exciting. I think even the distribution for this round of those sort of self bribes was a little bit higher than the last one. So make sure you're keeping up with Bunny and Timeless and everything they're doing there. All right. I think that is all of the Hidden Hand stuff. Did I miss anything? Anybody up here? Nope. Good. All right, cool. Next thing is Pirex. I think on the Pirex stuff, we don't have to cover too much on this call, mostly because I think we're going to have a call very soon that's going to be full of new Pirex information. But just know that the devs are working on some pretty cool stuff that is Pirex related. And I think we're going to have I want to say a pretty exciting month for Pirex. I think we're working on a lot of quality of life improvements, a lot of improvements to the UI, and something else. The same, never kind of hinted in town hall text chat as well. The same is kind of true for HH, but the first thing that would go out is probably a Pirex something. So I don't know if there's much we should touch on here for Pirex. We can just save it for a future call, unless there's anything urgent that people up here want to touch on. Oh, good. All right. Well, I guess we can move on to Dinero. Is any before we move on to that though? Again, anybody on stage have anything else we want to touch on before we move forward? All right. I guess this call is going to be a full-on Dinero call. Okay, hold on. We have some Pirex questions, so we can answer that. What is the team's view on Pirex GMX's performance? I think it's the same view that we've had for the past several weeks, and the same view that we've had since launch, and the same view we had whenever we launched Pirex Convex. I think that the situation with Pirex GMX is that it's a very long game, right? So we basically have to wait for the multiplier points to continue to build up to make it a really competitive product and convince people to switch over. I've seen some talk in the Discord about pointing incentives at Pirex GMX to kind of bootstrap it or whatever. I think that would be a strategic mistake, mostly because that's kind of like it just becomes an incentives pissing match with other competitors, which doesn't make sense to us. It's not a strategy that we've embraced in the past, and I don't think it's one we really want to embrace now for Pirex. So if there's anything anybody else has to tack onto that, feel free.
I'll add something. Just give me a second.
What did he say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. No, I was just saying, give me a second. Yeah, I think the reason we don't want to put Butterfly. So what we could do, and I think it was discussed like internally before launch, was like you can subsidize the yield that the multiplier points would have given you. With Butterfly, right? And we could have done that until we reached like the target. But it's not a good use of the Butterfly emissions since there's other pressing issues that other people want to like see the DAO push tokens to, right? Like the tokens aren't endless. Obviously, we want to make sure the number one thing at the moment for the Butterfly is that we make sure that the bonds are steady so we can keep on, pulling in strategic assets for different purposes, and also incentivizing early RL lockers, right? While that system is still new. And there's I guess like every community call, it becomes more and more of a topic of discussion on, does what's the situation going to be when the the planned RL rewards run out? Um, I guess it's like important to highlight that if there was to be a new incentive program in place, I think instead of putting it towards stuff like Pyrex or maybe some like hidden hand matching programs that people have inquired about before, the only thing that we would really ever consider like changing the incentives, the only thing we would consider injecting more incentives into is like I guess like a more smooth transition to zero butterfly RL rewards. Um, Maybe not just like a sudden stop, but yeah, that's the only thing I'll add on just like butterfly emissions.
Yeah, and somebody asked, what about getting PXGMX for our treasury then? Don't we kind of already have PXGMX in the treasury, given we did the treasury swap and then put it into Pyrex? Funky, you would,
Yeah.
or never, you guys would know.
Yeah, we did the treasury swap and we deposited a portion of it into the LP. We're looking to scale that, as TBL grows, but we do have like actually a lot of GMX on the side right now that we could pump into the system. Yeah, we could always add more.
Yeah, we can. It's just a matter of like figuring out priorities. So it's just one of those things where we have a lot of products to manage and grow and help succeed, and so we can't spend a ton of time just pouring a bunch of resources into one product, right? Like we have to figure out a way to balance not only the existing products that we have, but any future products that we launch, and we have to also balance efforts across multiple partnerships, etc. So just something to consider. There's good reason why we don't pour a ton of money into incentives for any particular sort of partnership or product. Let's see, making sure I didn't miss anything here. I don't think so. Cool. So, yeah, and I guess we can mention this while we're here. So, the RL Butterfly poll submissions, I think, are set to stop, if I'm not mistaken, in the near future. And Funky just mentioned the proposal, so maybe you could say it for the call as well.
So yeah, the original proposal was in May or something like that last year. Basically, we've had RL Butterfly missions since 1st June retroactively. And so yeah, basically that means they'll end on the 30th of May. And yes, the pizza rolls are absolutely delicious. And as we get closer to the end of the period, it kind of makes sense for us to start discussing that. And I think we'll use kind of similar benchmarks that we did last time in terms of setting what is, perhaps a reasonable amount of emissions. But obviously it'll be a discussion that we'll have with the community because the community is the one who will decide ultimately. But what we did last time is that we just looked at what are kind of comparable levels of yield that are expected for governance tokens and how can we supplement the RL Butterfly yield while the products continue developing and until we reach a steady state where we don't need butterfly emissions to RL Butterfly. So basically I guess the TLDR is that last year yields in DeFi were probably higher than they are now. So we're looking at like comparables like GMX or these kind of governance tokens in terms of what is a comparable yield. And yeah, we'll have those discussions next month.
Cool. And UTXE asked about the hidden hand. Guys, everybody relax. Like, it's okay if the bot goes down for a day or two. If the bot's down, the product still works and people can still use it. So it's just a bot. Sometimes it goes down. Sometimes it becomes sentient and has a mind of its own. It's just a bot. It's okay. We know it's down. We'll try to fix it. It is what it is. Everybody relax about the bot. Why wouldn't we put all GMX in the treasury into PXGMX? That is because we need to have the other side of the PXGMX pair for liquidity.
So I actually, wait, just to correct that, I think all the GMX that we have in the treasury is in PXGMX.
Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, we did it against ETH, right?
Yeah, and we have it against ETH. I think what Never was saying is that we have PXGMX, which isn't in the LP because we're kind of keeping that to like add liquidity later. And I think yesterday we had like a call, and we'll be moving the PXGMX, which isn't in the LP, into the kind of auto compounder, so APXGMX. So just to keep people in the loop.
Yeah, my bad. I forgot we paired it against ETH, so hopefully that answers that. If someone bribes Hidden Hand but the bot doesn't work, did anyone really bribe? I guess we'll find out. Okay, so anytime the bribe bot is down, any fees that Hidden Hand takes will just get redirected to my personal wallet, since the bribe bot is so important in this case. Is everybody cool with that? Okay, so other people want it. All right, well, maybe we can figure something out, but I think it'll probably go to my wallet if the bribe bot's down. Anyways, moving on, I think we should transition over to some Dinero stuff. I feel like people are going to have a lot of questions. We have a lot to discuss. And so I think before we kind of get into this, I do want to disclaimer a little bit. This is a light paper. Some of the details in it are subject to change, not only from suggestions from ourselves, but from suggestions from you guys and from the things that just happen during the development process. So yeah, Funky said it best. Like, the light paper means that the details are light. So everything's treat everything as if it's subject to change. Obviously some things are more subject to change than others, but just worth keeping in mind as we continue the conversation, as you guys ask questions and stuff like that. Is the name subject to change? I would say that is the one thing that's probably least likely to change. And the brand is also least likely to change. I think we hit the nail on the head with both of those things. So probably not. But cool. As you all saw, if you didn't, maybe you live under a rock, not sure. But we made a big announcement yesterday. We kind of revealed the details that as we have them to the world about Dinero. We released the light paper, but we also released a governance proposal for you all to review and I think vote on. I want to say it's going on Snapshot probably tomorrow, Funky.
Yep, tomorrow.
Yep,
so
tomorrow.
48 hours after it was posted.
Sick. So
basically
Snapshot
about an hour from today.
Dope. So if you haven't read the proposal, definitely recommend checking it out, as some details in there. And then if you haven't read the light paper, definitely recommend checking that out. So Snapshot tomorrow, make sure you vote. It'll let us know how you guys feel about it. And if you have any feedback about Dinero, please just leave it on the governance forum, or you can also leave it in the Discord. The forum is probably cleaner. It'll mean it doesn't get lost. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how we want to do this. Maybe we just open it up for questions. I don't know if, Sammy, there's anything you want to opine on before we let people ask questions. It's totally up to you. Yeah, I read the light paper in a really low voice. Okay, so it's loud where Sammy is, so maybe we can kind of like leave it open to questions, let people do whatever they want, and we can just have a casual conversation about it. And yeah, let me pull up the light paper too, so I'm not talking out of my ass. We also have Never and Funky up here, who I think are smarter than me about this thing. So how does the roadmap look for the product? I think, Never, maybe it'd be helpful for you to kind of talk about, I don't know, where we kind of are so far, like what we've been up to. And then obviously some of this depends on where the proposal goes. It looks like the proposal is very likely to pass. So assuming that it passes, we'll go full steam ahead on actually building the thing. But I think so far we've been heavy into figuring out a lot of the functionality around staking and whatnot. So Never, I'll let you kind of talk about where we're at on the development side.
Yeah, before we put up the proposal, we need to make sure that, like, it's a viable thing that we can build, it's feasible. So over the past few months, just, really deep in the research side of things, especially with writing the paper and actually getting like something working on, at least locally, and building stuff out, testing stuff out. And I think what we finally came on was basically what's in the light paper and the preceding things that we will, other white papers that we will launch. But yeah, so far through our research, we've have a good foundation of the system, and we'll continue to crystallize it over the next few X amount of time.
Dope. And on the sort of branding side and marketing side, we've gotten to a pretty good spot with the brand, so we know what Dinero is going to kind of look like as its own. Because as you all know, like Hidden Hand has its own visual identity, Pirex has its own visual identity, and we'll continue that trend for Dinero. So we're pretty far along on developing that. As you all saw, the logo is kind of already set in stone. We have a sort of visual language that we're working towards, as you saw with the teaser video. So I think all of that stuff is moving along great. We're making good progress, and we feel like this is a thing that we can actually build and successfully launch into the market. And so now it's time to get the ball rolling. Hopefully, if everybody in the DAO approves, of course. So somebody asked, hold on, I just lost the question. Which stablecoin currently on the market is most like Dinero, if any? I think when it comes to the borrowing side, any sort of traditional CDP style stablecoin like MakerDAO and others is going to be the most similar in that regard. But where Dinero becomes extremely unique is all of the other pieces, right? As it pertains to PXE, the redacted relayer, etc. So the important thing to remember is not just the stablecoin aspect; it's how the entire system fits together to make a protocol as a whole, if that makes sense. So I know somebody was like asking in the general chat, how is this different from MakerDAO or Frax or whatever? And so that's the key difference, is the entire system as a whole, not just the CDP and the stablecoin piece. Where does Hidden Hand fit into Dinero, or are we just bribing for liquidity? I don't know if we.
Yeah, I can go on it. I mean,
Sure.
I don't know. For the past year or so, we've actually building like the liquidity infrastructure of DeFi for other DAOs, and receiving fees from it that we push towards our butterfly. So we're kind of like, the infrastructure that we've built is like made for very liquidity intensive applications like a stablecoin. So we will be, of course, the first users of it. We will be like the most adamant users of it, and we will be using it as well.
Yeah. Can we expect PXE before Shanghai? Probably. Yeah. No. I don't think so. I think the other thing, I should probably set a disclaimer here as well before we got into the questions, is that we don't have any set like launch dates right now. The reason why is because we just released the white paper, and we have been spending most of our time checking out the feasibility of this whole thing. Like, is this possible? Does it make sense? Why does it make sense, etc. And that's kind of where we landed on the light paper, and now we're kind of building out the white paper, which will have a lot more of a detailed specification. So I think, when it comes to dates, people want them, we don't have them, and there's like a good reason for that. We actually have to build the thing, make sure it works, test it, get it audited, then get it launched, things like that. So little patience here.
I mean, of course, we have like from our research and stuff, we've built stuff that we can build on top of as we get it like closer to production ready. But also, the unlocking queue and stuff is one of the most important parts of the protocol. So launching it before Shanghai, or like even like right after, is a bit of a bet that it's time that you take away from like us improving the product in terms of like, okay, what is actually going to happen? How does it work? It's all good, and we can look at the code, sure, but you don't know actually how that thing works until people start using it, right?
Exactly. So next question is, who will be the validator for PXE? Never, you probably have more insight into how the validator structure is planned, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So far, like the kind of stack that we built in our research was, we've talked to a lot of different staking providers, and kind of we wanted to build it ourselves in-house. So we're building it in the premise that like we want this network not to be just us being the singular node, or like collection of nodes. So we want to build an application where, let's say, like a couple months down the line, when it's a stable system, that other people can actually join the network as well, and increase our capacity for block space and such. And we built it like so far in a pretty modular way, where you can actually deploy it, deploy it on cloud services, whatever, or even run it on bare metal quite easily.
Dope. this is about to be the never show because you have the most insight into all of this, but can you give more details on what the redacted relayer is and its, I guess, potential uses or use case within the system?
Yeah. So as you see with like over collateralized stablecoins, over time, as demand for them increases, usually the collateral, goes to infinity. So we kind of reversed this like negative and made it a positive where, since we're using like staked ETH and we're validating the network, this will, open up opportunities for us to actually build blocks. And we, wanted to provide like users like a stable unit of gas that they could use to actually execute transactions using Dinero. Even before we started producing blocks, you could always route through our relayer and push like private transactions or whatever that we will push on top. And once actually like Dinero gets to be big enough where we're building blocks like flashbots or whatever, you can even, it's completely private and premium. Yeah.
Dope. Another question about the redacted relayer. So what will the user experience be like to use the redacted relayer? Will it just be another RPC in your wallet and you spend Dinero instead of ETH? Will it work directly with ETH protocols, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, it has it is not a completely new idea, for sure. I mean, Biconomy tried to do it a couple of years ago. It was a bit too early. I think they're still alive, but yeah, the UX is basically hold Dinero, sign a message, push that gets pushed to our relayer, and we execute it on chain. Yeah, we will also be building wrapper contracts or like the most popular DeFi applications, so that it's very seamless.
Cool. I saw a question just a second ago and I lost it. Lido needs time to build something because they're going to be irrelevant very fast. I don't think Lido or Lido, however you say it, I don't think they're going anywhere. They have pretty significant market share, but it'll be fun to compete a little bit. It's always fun to compete. When Butterfly Chain, soon TM, we'll launch a whole. We should launch Butterfly Chain. What do you guys think? Should we just launch our own thing?
Well, like our own app chain?
Yeah, just our whole own thing. Should we launch that? Do
Yeah,
people
why
want
not
that?
Butterfly B3?
Yeah, Butterfly B3. Yeah, we could call it the Colton chain. I don't think anybody would be against that.
Yeah, I mean it's not a bad idea. Like we could just make our own chain. The denom that people use to pay like all like it could be
Yeah, but
native
we have to
like,
call it the Colton chain.
Dinero.
Yeah.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. I think a lot of people would be in favor of that. It sounds like one of the best ideas that's been proposed in this whole thing. Do we have a critical size we were trying to achieve with Dinero? That's actually a good question because it's something that is pretty important, I think, for PXETH and the redacted relayer side of it. I don't have the answer though. Never is that. Do you have?
It should be coming out. It should be coming out in the next white paper we push out. But yeah, I mean, let's say I think what was the last numbers we had? It was like we need like $400 million in TVL to like process like actually build blocks for every couple of minutes. I mean that's pretty bad UX, but that's like the minimum viable thing to get. But of course we want to be launching this for like like the actual full building until end of the year or something.
Yeah, we're gonna need a lot of ETH, so everybody get your ETH and get it ready and put it in fast, and get all your friends to put it in because we're gonna need it.
Yeah, faster the closer we get to a B,
Yeah. Sammy validates the transactions by hand. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he knows how to do that too. So Sammy can validate all the transactions on Colton chain, which is the same as Butterfly chain, and I think it's pretty bullish. Where to send ETH? Send it to either my EOA or Never's EOA. We'll take care of it for you. Get it put in there. Yeah, send it to Colton.eth or Never.eth. PXETH would be redeemable. Are you asking if PXETH will be redeemable? Is that what you're? I guess funky. You said yes, so I'm guessing the answer is yes. I don't really follow the
Yes.
question, but
So like post Shanghai, well, I think if everybody knows what Shanghai is, but basically Shanghai is an upgrade to the Ethereum network, which allows ETH to be unstaked from ETH staking, and in PXETH there will be a mechanism for people to unstake their ETH. So yeah.
oh, here's a question that it looks like I missed. Isn't there always a likelihood a block isn't handled by it says butterfly, but I don't think it means that. I think it means the relayer. Isn't it always a likelihood that the block isn't handled by us and consequently prevents meta and private transactions?
Meta, maybe that's fine because you'd always just you don't have to be the block builder to do that. But for let's say like like a user experience similar to Flashbots, that would require a lot more ETH, and that's why we use like every X minutes instead of saying you can make every single one, right? I don't know if you guys have used Flashbots. It's not as fast as just putting it through the public mempool, but you get benefits for it, right? It's a trade-off there.
Yeah, and we have, I think, for the first time on stage, Fahad. I don't know if you had anything to tack onto that, or if you just want to say hello. But
I'll just say hello. Hi, guys.
so, but Fahad is one of the Chads that's been working behind the scenes on Dinero. A lot of his brain energy has gone into not only the current draft of the white papers, but also the light papers. So shout out to him. He's been doing a lot of the research, doing a lot of the putting the pieces together, making sure that things make sense. So appreciate him as well. Yeah, we'll get him a better mic. We'll work on it. Sammy, get this guy a mic. What's going on here? Do we need an RFF to get Fahad a new mic? We'll make it happen.
We can use an AMO, Dinero AMO.
We'll get the thing is, guys, we do have a terrible track record of getting people to fix their mics. Like Figgy never did it, and it's been over a year now. So, and his mic is still shit. So, okay. Let me see. Let me see if I missed any questions here. Okay, so here we go. I'll ask this first. So TLDR version of the light paper is that by holding Dinero, we'll be able to submit cheaper transactions on the ETH network, or am I oversimplifying it? Any thoughts? No? All right. Well, I guess we don't have an answer for that one. I think we're oversimplifying it in that question. USDC's backing is to arbitrage when the Dinero price is greater than $1, right? Will it only be available to mint with USDC when Dinero price is greater than $1? Is the plan for Dinero to hold that USDC backing or switch it to ETH after users arbitrage?
So to answer the questions in order, yes, the whole point of the USDC is just to arb the price down when it's above the dollar. There's like two mechanisms for in the protocol for the peg to be maintained. So the first one is that you can always redeem one Dinero for $1 of ETH or USDC, and then the second one is that you can mint Dinero for $1 of USDC, which basically allows you to keep that peg. And unfortunately, in the current I guess innovation that we have in stablecoins, the PSM is kind of the only way to achieve that. And there's, I think, one USD stablecoin which doesn't, and it's LUSD, and they're not always at $1 because they don't have this mechanism. And yes, this USDC vault will only be kind of available to arbitrage the price back to $1. So it won't. So that's how we're planning to kind of limit the USDC exposures, by only allowing this vault to function by the Dinero protocol. So the idea is that only the Dinero protocol itself will be able to mint Dinero with USDC, but anybody can call this kind of function to bring the price back down. And this collateral will have to be kept as USDC, and the reason for that is it's more stable, and therefore you can have a lower collateral ratio on that vault, whereas with ETH you require a higher collateral ratio, and that wouldn't work in terms of keeping the price at $1.
Yeah, maybe I can add something to this too. There was a lot of thought that went into the PSM, and it was one of the things that was holding back, I guess, what is now the announcement. We have played around with some ideas that we'll either implement after launch or not, for how we can reduce the USDC dependency, right? Because like we said, I think the best way to tackle it right now is, instead of creating, like a public and permissionless CDP the same way the PXETH one will be, the basic plan will be, limit the USDC CDPs that are circulating of Dinero to just the protocol itself, right? And as we can start to diversify the PSM holdings, as well as like reduce the dependencies we have on USDC, the protocol can do that in a much more efficient manner than if we were putting those, if we gave that ability to holders, right? It's kind of like the typical LP migration problem, right? If you make an LP public for everyone, which is not POL, then what happens is you try to migrate it, and not everyone migrates, right? People will probably love to use the USDC PSM, and that's the problem that it faces right now, right? Whereas with this, if we limit the PSM exposure to only the protocol itself, right, POL, it is a lot easier for us to transition out of it and not be in situations where we are, stuck holding USDC, right? So you can imagine all the USDC-backed Dinero that is out there would be limited to the protocol itself, and all the Dinero that you guys would be holding or minting or anything like that, all the Dinero that is circulating, let's say, would be in the hands of the users, right? So for you guys, it'll be PXETH backed, and then for the protocol itself, just for PSM purposes, it'll be USDC backed. Hopefully that gives more light as to how that works.
And we got a lot of questions about why we chose like USDC, or why there had to be USDC at all, or why not use ETH, and so on and so forth. And I think like the reality is that it's extremely hard to arbitrage a stablecoin without a stablecoin that is also like pegged very explicitly to $1. And despite the issue that I guess happened a couple of weeks ago now, or whenever it was, where the depegging happened, I think like no matter what, USDC gives the best peg guarantees out of all of the stablecoins available on the market. And of the other stablecoins that give similar peg guarantees, they're just heavily backed by USDC, right? So whether it's DAI or Frax, and you can't use something like LUSD as a primary arbitrage sort of opportunity here, because LUSD is hardly ever pegged to $1. It's usually more like $1.02, if not more. So it's kind of like a necessary evil at this point. We're trying to minimize the overall risk, and like Joker Frog said, it is the best choice at the moment. It's what we have, and it's better to try to guarantee. I guess you can't guarantee anything, but it's better to try to guarantee price stability at $1 than to just let the peg go wherever it needs to go. What happens if USDC depegs? And that means the arbitrage loop would basically be broken temporarily. I think it's extremely unlikely that USDC has pretty bad depegs again. I think they'll probably learn their lesson from this last situation. But even still, like the last time this happened, it was a overreaction from the market, especially given all of the facts. So I think it's unlikely, but again, it's kind of the best option that we have.
And I guess like we're not going to be so reckless and just say like there's no debt ceiling on the PSM or anything like that, right? Like obviously it's going to be used responsibly and to maintain the peg more than it's going to be to just like put number up, right? I guess like with DAI, they just said anyone can mint DAI against USDC. There's no limit, and then look what sort of happened with DAI, right? Whereas with this, it'll be very closed. The margin that we will be getting from this USDC will be very minimal, margin / leverage, and it'll only be used to sort of like manage the Dinero, and every time that we can reduce that exposure, we will. That's why this CDP, that's why this USDC CDP is POL, because it can just be like the exposure to USDC can be better managed, and there'll be like different parameters in place to make sure it doesn't get out of control. So I think people hear the word USDC PSM and get scared, I guess, but like this is definitely operating on a completely different, not different, but a much more responsible implementation of it than I guess the current industry standard.
Yeah, and just to add on to this, some people are bringing up good points about oracles, and I think this is also a good time to mention that what happened with MakerDAO the last time USDC depegged was that they had USDC's price hard-coded in the PSM. So they, no matter what the actual price of USDC was, they treated it as if it was $1. So DAI basically functioned as exit liquidity against USDC whenever it was depegging. We, of course, mentioned in the light paper that we are going to use oracles because you need real prices, everybody. I think a lot of people learned the hard way over the past few months that hard coding prices is an easy solution, but not a good solution. And somebody, it was Joker. Joker asked, has a secondary oracle been identified to back up Chainlink? Not yet, and I don't think that's of the utmost importance at the moment. Like, the thing about the backup oracle is it's kind of like a safety mechanism, right? And the odds that Chainlink goes down is extremely unlikely. So it's like one of those things where we can kind of decide on it later. It's not a super important implementation detail to decide on right now. But of course, we'll include it in the white paper.
But we have started looking at secondary oracles via some stuff that we've been playing around with for PX, GMX lending and Pirex lending. So we are experimenting on how the different oracles operate for some of the Pirex stuff. So we are experimenting with it. It's not something that we put zero thought towards. That stuff should come more to light as the stablecoin comes to market.
Yep. Let's see. It's when white paper when it's ready. Let's see. If Chainlink went down, there would be bigger problems anyway. Yeah, I mean, if Chainlink goes down, it's not good. Let's just say that. So I think it's always important for a system to have redundancy. That's correct. And I think, we kind of like borrowed inspiration for the dual oracle idea from liquidity. And it's something that I think is worth implementing. Like, it's always good to have backups, but like FOMO said, if Chainlink goes down, there are big problems. Hypothetically, how long are we looking for a testnet? As long as it takes. Let's see. Anything
okay. It's as long as it takes, but I guess like some people have PTSD from like how long it took for the announcement to go out. It's not that, like, we wouldn't make the announcement if things weren't already progressing. So like it's not something where you guys are going to be waiting like quarters and like a long time to get a launch, right? Like, it's not going to be like the announcement. Where the announcement, the reason it was delayed was so long was because we just wanted to make sure the implementation and design was perfect. Whereas with this, it's more just a question of like finishing up development, getting audits and stuff like that. And you guys have seen, I guess, like our track record on like, from when the announcement gets made to like the actual launch happening. So this is no different than any of the other releases that we've done. So it's a bit different than like, making the announcement of the project or something.
Yes, Sammy's got girlies in the background chuckling. How did the stablecoin part of Dinero and the access to private block space LSD part reinforce each other? Are these two separate ideas / products smashed together, or do they work together to make each other more powerful? And if so, how? Anybody want to take this one?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so how do the stablecoin part of Dinero and the access to private block space slash LSD part reinforce each other? Are these two separate ideas slash products smashed together, or do they work together to make each other more powerful? If so, how?
Okay, so I'll let Never explain the technical side of this, but from a strategic standpoint, there is a problem with all of the decentralized stablecoins out there right now, where the only utility of them is to farm them, right? There's no reason why someone would hold. I'm not going to name names because we want to partner with them, right? But there's no reason why people would hold something other than USDC right now, because the only thing they can do with it is LP it, right? And we recognize that, right? We're not coming out to the market and saying, hey guys, like soon you're going to be using Dinero instead of the US dollar at your local coffee shop, right? We're not, that's not something we're promising. What we look at is we look at the market right now, and what could be a real application of a stablecoin is things like using it for gas and making it like a medium of exchange on chain itself, right? So it's not sort of like different products that have been smashed together. I think what you have is a loop, a flywheel where, you know, PXETH backs Dinero. And then what you want is that like connecting piece where you can continue to drive demand for the stablecoin once you maybe tap out in terms of yield and stuff, right? So we know we have a lot of treasury. We know our treasury is stacked with things that can get the yield up on the stablecoin, and it'll probably tap out at like what the market rate is, you know, eventually if everyone mints if everyone mints the stablecoin and sort of like closes that that yield arbitrage that exists. So what is that like next part of it that we can use to sort of continue to drive demand and adoption? And for us, the most practical thing I can think of is the relayer, right? The relayer is like serves as a really unique and novel utility that we can introduce to our stable as to a reason why when ETH is going down or BTC is going down and you want to flee the stables, why would someone buy? I think it is enough of a reason for people to buy Dinero over other stable coins that are out there that maybe like people would consider our competitors, right? That's the strategic reason for it, and then I'll let Never explain like the technical way it works.
Yeah, they work hand in hand. The success of Dinero is the success of the relayer, right? And I mean the success of PXETH is the success of Dinero, which is then the success of the relayer, and you require all of them to actually get the final vision out. And also from like a UX perspective, as a new user, DeFi is still the biggest use case of crypto is stablecoins, and having a stablecoin that you can use to interact with the network is something that is like when people say mass adoption or whatever could become a pretty useful utility.
Cool. Is the plan to start with PXETH adoption? Yeah, pretty much. Because we need PXETH before all of the other pieces come into play, right? So that's the plan. PXETH on Arbitrum? I don't think so. Not right now.
Whatever the community wants, right? Like obviously it'll start on Ethereum. That's where we have the upper hand over. Maybe I won't say Lido, but I guess everyone else, right? We have the upper hand in terms of like how we can direct yield and emissions to the LSD. So it'll definitely start on Ethereum, but as you guys know, we've been, at least like I have been, and maybe Karin and the BD team has been like talking about stuff we want to do on ZK Sync. We have the V NFT on Velodrome. We're on the roundtable for Camelot on Arbitrum. So the opportunities and paths to go multi-chain very quickly exist, but it's more just like a execution thing than it is like a strategy thing. Obviously, we want to be on all the L2s, but it doesn't make sense to start with anything other than the curve pool and the balancer and uni pool or something, right? Yeah.
What are the... Okay, hold on. So how will incentivizing liquidity for PXETH work? Will we have a similar system to Frax, i.e. 2 tokens? Do we have any thoughts on how we're thinking about incentives in general yet?
I think this is detail that would come out in a different paper. And like I think it's important to like the reason why we've gone with a light paper first and more detailed white papers later is obviously to get the snapshot proposal passed, so that we're formally building it for the community, but also to give the community an idea of what we're building without kind of giving away too much of the secret sauce, right? Like something that's quite important in DeFi is maintaining our edge, and if we kind of give this information away, we might lose that by the time we launch. So this is definitely something we're thinking about. How are we going to bootstrap a lot of ETH TVL? Because we need a lot of ETH TVL. And how do we compete in an extremely saturated market, which is dominated by several large players? So definitely something we're thinking about. Got all our smartest minds thinking on it. So TLDR, we have some things that we're thinking about, but can't share them at the moment.
Yeah, when it comes to general strategy around adoption and bootstrapping growth and all of those things, I would consider those later in the sort of roadmap, right? Like we have to get the thing built first and then figure out strategic execution around adoption. So just keep that in mind if you have questions about what all that looks like. All right, we are nearing the hour here, so I'll do a last call for
We can answer Ark's question where the last questions come in. Where is the buy button? We'll make sure to make the buy button very large and shiny, and maybe even have it be 3D and spinning for you.
Okay. Guess on another note, any updates regarding BBC? After all this, you're worried about BBC. I
Go to the Discord. There's a Discord
Yeah.
that Pink is running, right? Give that man a say hello. Say hello.
Yeah. Guys, I would, yeah.
Last I saw, I'll give whatever update there is, right?
Sure.
Last I saw, the devs were having some troubles with making it just RL Butterfly. So they're actually waiting on us now for PX Butterfly and using that as like the mint button and all that sort of stuff, because it's just easier for them to like use PX Butterfly instead of having to create some sort of smart contract which looks for unlocks and vlocks it and all this sort of stuff. So that's the last I saw, but that was actually not like last week or something. That was like a while back. So wish I had more of an update, but hopefully for the next unlock.
Lol. When PX Butterfly soon TM, doesn't PX Butterfly negate BBC? No, it's kind of the exact opposite. So BBC will be like built on top. Cool. All right. Well, we made it to the hour. I appreciate you all coming to hang out, and I appreciate all of the support on the announcement yesterday. For those of you who are curious about the recording, missed the first half of the call, whatever, like always, we record these on Friday, upload them on Monday. So appreciate you all coming to hang out. Hope you all have a good Friday. Win joke. I think we retired the joke. All the jokesters are gone. So jokes are retired. But anyways, everybody enjoy their Friday. Enjoy their weekend. Thanks again for hanging out. And yeah, see you all around. Peace.
We should make Fahad do the joke.
I would never do that to Fahad. He doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, at least. Okay, have a good Easter or whatever it is today.
Yeah, whatever holiday it is, have a good one. All right. Peace, everybody.
Peace.